Welcome to the very first edition of the new year of Drive Facebook Live. I'm Bob Spitz, your host, with my partner Tony Whistler.
Hey, everybody.
And starting the new year, we've got some special guests with us. We have Jeremy Blom, and we also have Cassie Croel. Cassie is one of our senior coaches who specializes in collision, and Jeremy successfully exited his shop and is now part of the Drive team as one of our coaches and instructors. And it's great to have the two of you with us. And what are we going to talk about today, Cassie?
Well, thanks, Bob and Tony. I'm actually going to let Jeremy start off. We wanted something that's on everybody's mind is insurance companies and insurance companies paying for repairs. And so, Jeremy, I'll let you throw our first challenge out there.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so one thing we hear a lot, like literally any shop you talk to, is insurance company X, Y, or Z. I'm not paying for this. I'm not paying for that. You can't do this procedure. You won't pay, blah, blah, blah. So the first challenge is, how then do we get insurance companies to pay for repairs? And if they're just absolutely not willing to pay, what is the next step?
My answer and first suggestion would be blueprinting. And I can't say it enough, blueprinting. It checks a lot of boxes. So as far as the insurance companies are concerned, if you can lay out everything that's needed for that repair, and you say, this is what I need you to pay for, based on measuring, based on pre and post scanning, then you have a strong argument. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to pay for every single thing there. There's negotiation, but you definitely stand in a stronger position.
Now, I have a quick question. Sorry to interrupt,
go ahead.
Can you just tell our audience a little bit more about what blueprinting actually is?
Well, it's breaking down the car completely. So it's tearing down the car completely, and which requires one of your technicians. And they work in conjunction with your estimator. Your estimator at that point is determining, okay, so this is the repair. This is the parts that we need to order. Here are the repairs that we're going to need to put on our estimate. One, so we can create a price for the insurance company, but also two, so we'll know exactly how to dispatch the work.
Because so it's not just walking the car and then going, hey, I think it's probably this.
Exactly. It's internal.
And I think there's a new terminology that we, as people that are training people and estimators themselves in shops, should use. And that is this. Instead of saying, there may be hidden damage. Okay, so you say, well, we're gonna write an estimate, but then there may be hidden damage. Okay, that is actually not true. The truth is, we don't know what all is needed until we blueprint. That reveals everything, and only then can you tell everything that's absolutely needed for the repair. So to say that there may be hidden damage is kind of an old term. Like in order to,
because isn't it even a small hit, Jeremy? Isn't there almost always hidden damage?
Well, interesting that you say that, Bob. Yes, but again, new terminology is you don't know what the extent of damage is until you take the car apart. So again, it's not really hidden. The answer is you don't know until you take it apart and figure out everything.
So you're just saying there's damage and we got to find it all.
Absolutely. And not only that, but there's procedures that are revealed as you take it apart that you wouldn't know when the car's put together. One-time use fasteners, one-time use moldings, one-time use glass, all these things are revealed when you do the blueprint and take the car apart.
Right. Now, one of the things you mentioned, Cassie, entering a negotiation from a position of power, I do believe that if a shop does their OE research and homework, that helps them. Is that true?
Well, right. That's part of putting the estimate together.
I will say, Bob, it does help, absolutely. But you do need to be prepared for when insurance companies and adjusters dig in their heels and just say no. So you do have to be prepared for that also, but start with amazing blueprinting, documentation, pictures, even videos, or even procedures, everything you can think of first and lay it all out in black and white. That is your best help in the beginning.
Right.
So if
Something that I
growing,
think gets lost in the conversation is remembering who the shop is contracting with.
Yes.
And that's the
Exactly.
customer,
Yes.
not the insurance company.
Right.
Cassie,
so
go ahead.
discuss the fact that in this, what's happened is that insurance companies are not paying for everything. And although blueprinting, I think if you come to this situation, this negotiation with the information we just said, you're in a stronger position.
Mhm.
If by chance you do have to go to the customer and say, okay, customer, this is the insurance company is not going to pay for this difference, and we can't pay for this difference. So I'm asking you to do it, and I think it's in your best interest to do it for all the reasons to keep your car safe. And by you having the blueprinting and the documentation, you can even then go to said customer and say to them, this is why you should do it. I think
Yes.
you're in a stronger position than I think some shops are doing, or saying, okay, it's our policy that if the insurance company doesn't cover it, you're going to have to cover it. But how nice would it be if you could have something solid documented to show the customer so they truly understand?
Right.
Besides, obviously, your DVI, your photos, which make
Yes.
it.
And also start including the customer in the email or in the conversation with the adjuster or the insurance company, because then you can tell your side of the story while the adjuster or while the insurance company is telling their side of the story together. Because it's much easier for an adjuster or an insurance company to call the customer and talk directly without you on the line, right? They'll say things that they maybe wouldn't say with the customer online. And I'm not saying, I mean, some policies are very clear. Okay. Mine included, my own personal policy probably says on it that aftermarket parts are what I paid for. End of story. So you do have to refer to the policy, but the problem with the policy is sometimes they're gray. In some areas they're gray, so then you got to have those conversations.
And then
Well,
you could, but
that begs the question, which has come up in this last year for general repair with the service contracts, how
Absolutely.
critical it is to have that conversation up front with the customer
Yes.
before you even engage.
Yes. I have literally two extended warranties on two different vehicles I personally own, and I have them literally scheduled in 2 weeks to go in the shop, and I'm prepared to help them have those conversations because I know that, they're going to say, no, this blah blah blah. But absolutely, it's almost identical to the same problem. But again, I paid for a policy and it's literally in black and white what it covers and what it doesn't. So then let's discuss it.
right, but
Sure, but as
and
you
you're
know, Jeremy,
advocating too, right? You're advocating as the owner of the vehicle to the insurance company with the actual shop, correct?
Yes. Yes.
yeah. And one of the challenges, I know you know this, Jeremy, and I think we all know this, is that very few consumers actually know what their policy says.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Many times your rates go up or whatever. So even your insurance agent helps you switch to get a better rate, but nobody ever talks about what's actually included in that. Why?
Right. That came up in a conversation yesterday in one of the workshops with one of our shops in Texas, that there are some insurance companies out there that are running such cut rate deals that they're covering almost nothing.
Right.
In fact, this one body shop just refuses to do any work with this one collision shop, with this one insurance company, because they will not pay more than $36 an hour for labor.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I will say I and Drive is not here to say that we are emphatically against insurance companies. I'm not here to say that, but what I am here to say is there is a black and white policy, and we got to learn how to help customers read that, help the shop read that, and together come up with how we're going to fix this car based on the policy, because it is black and white, and there is a policy. That's what we should point towards. It's not a personal thing, and it's not an insurance company thing, really. It's the policy. Hence
Right,
why we have policies in anything. So,
right. Just like, a consumer doesn't understand the difference between LKQ
Right.
OEM factory new,
Right.
and how does that affect the repair?
Right.
And what are their expectations? Because the consumer's expectation is the car is going to be better than new when I get it back.
And they're only going to have to pay their deductible, or if it's not their insurance and they got hit by somebody else and it's a claimant repair, that's supposed to theoretically cost them zero. So,
So then, Cassie, when it comes to training in a collision shop, that person up front, whether they're the CSR, customer service rep, a service advisor, whatever they're being called, which that name gets bounced around a lot, that front person, they're training on knowing how to handle the customer, educating the customer, and capturing the car is critical, isn't it?
It is. And it's a different process than general repair because it's a lot of education. And I mean, you fall back on some of the same sales kind of conversations, but it's very different and really letting the customer know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because not many people know how a collision repair is supposed to go. And the fact that even if it is a bumper hit, there could be damage behind. And that's just, that's really just not something that most people would know. And
No,
then
I'm sure they don't know at all.
and trying to get them
Yeah.
to understand it and be willing to be open to it. That takes
Right.
a certain kind of training and ability. So
Yeah.
training by the owner to the estimator or whomever is going to be training them, so that estimator can then convey that to the customer.
Right.
Right. And we're now talking about more time spent in a collision shop in one handling the customer, but also two building that blueprint, the amount of time necessary for OE research and doing it correctly. Well, that adds a lot of time to the job.
Yeah.
How are we getting paid for that, Jeremy?
Well, the first thing is ask for it. The
Yeah.
first thing is ask for it. Not everybody even asks for it. So document it and ask for it. I'd say is the number one start anyway.
Right, because I'd imagine it could easily take an hour, maybe 2 hours to do all that
Mhm.
research.
Yep. Yep.
And that seems to be a moving target by the OE on what you should do.
Right.
So trying to get the most current information is also critical.
Yes.
Yeah. What a game.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be done by the estimator. That could be there's a there's a discussion whether that's the technician's job to look up the OEM procedures or is that the estimator's job. That needs to be an internal shop discussion. But then whoever's job it is, document it, write it down, ask for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
'Cause
literally
it's-
everything you do, the car's sitting on the parking lot, and when that thing starts going, moving, like the entire process, take a picture, write it down, ask for labor. Like everything costs money. So,
That's right. All of this costs the shop owner money.
right, right,
If you start looking at it by, profit by hour and then profit by
Right.
minute,
right.
it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of education of the team, a lot of understanding of how to negotiate. I guess these are the critical points, Cassie.
They are, and I do want to say the blueprinting, as far as working with insurance companies, helps with supplements. If you are having late supplements and then you're sending them into the insurance company, wanting them to get approved, it just makes it a little more difficult. Versus in the very beginning, outlining everything you need and sending it in at once and having that negotiation once.
Yeah.
And a lot of times getting paid for the supplements and then that whole discussion on whether or not do I let the vehicle go until I get paid from the insurance company or do I let the customer have it? And then you're in a stronger position when, the insurance company doesn't have to pay for a rental car longer. I mean,
Oh,
use
yeah.
that to your advantage. Here, I've given you all your supplements. This is everything that's needed to get the car done. This is the amount of time you need for a rental car. Now we can close this out.
Yep.
It just makes it cleaner for them and cleaner for you
Yep.
and
Yeah.
the customer, which is the number one person here.
Right.
Well, I know during the COVID fiasco, the key-to-key time was getting absolutely out of control due to can't get parts.
Supply chain.
What's current key-to-key time?
I mean, it's certainly gotten better. The parts situation has gotten way better, but there are still instances where you have a one-off situation where there's literally only one in the country. You just got to be open and say this is our choices. go to the insurance company first, because again, that's if it's an insurance company paying for it, the policy says whatever. Get the agreement from the insurance company or the adjuster to ship it in from wherever it is, in America, and either get it done, or the car just sits there. And again, like you said, Cassie, then the rental car becomes a thing. Like, are we going to sit here and wait for 3 weeks? Or are we going to pay $100 extra for shipping? Let's figure it out and move forward.
Right. So those points of being able to build great rapport, not only with the customer, but with the insurance company is critical.
Very
And
critical.
staying in very tight communication with the customer, letting them know
Yes.
the status and what's going on. It's just critical.
Yep.
That's great. We had 3 points that we wanted to cover today, and we've just burned up half our time at the first point.
That was a good point.
So it's a great point, and we could go on and on that one point. But let's get on to the second topic, Cassie. What was it?
It was the impact of total losses.
Ah,
Jeremy, I'll let you explain the challenge here.
Okay. So we're going to look at this from two perspectives. One, and I literally just talked to a shop yesterday about the impact of this, so this is kind of interesting. But I mean, it was huge. But yes, one would be from a DRP perspective. If you have DRPs where you can't charge for total losses, then how does that affect the time spent, because you can't charge for them, and the dollars lost there needs to be made up in volume, plain and simple. On the other hand, if you're an independent and doing total losses and being able to charge for them, then that is part of your revenue stream, because it is, and you don't get the volume, so you kind of not necessarily need the money for it, but you have that available to put in, your books to be able to charge. Okay. So you kind of have to weigh it out. Maybe you're somewhere in between. Maybe you only have one DRP. Okay. But you work on 15, 20 different insurance companies. Maybe you only have one DRP. Well, then you got to look at that specific one that you don't charge for total losses and look at the volume you're doing for that company. And at the end of the year, and this is the conversation I had yesterday with the shop, how much could have you charged for all those total losses? Okay. And you literally take that out of the profit that you made for that one company and just ask yourself, is it worth it or not?
right. That's evaluation decision points. Now, with the increased sophistication of the cars, the costs of repairing these cars, are we seeing more total losses?
Absolutely. It's getting out of hand. Yes. And then it begs the question, and I've had this discussed with shops also, aren't we shooting ourselves in the foot to total a car versus fix it, even if we have to take less gross profit? And again, there's two things there. One would be, well, you certainly don't want to do a less quality repair because of that. That would be a no-no.
Right.
But on the other hand, I get it, if you don't have enough work or whatever, if you're slow, it just becomes something in your mind. Should I fix this car or should I total it? But that's kind of more of a business owner decision. But certainly there are more cars totaling than ever this day and age. And for some reason, it's because the value is so high that the insurance company can get for the cars at the auctions. I mean, it's ridiculous what they go for, but it's reality. It is what it is.
Oh, the components.
We have to confront it. So,
right.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that is, there is some benefits, if you're non-DRP, as far as if you have the storage capabilities,
of course,
you can charge for admin, you can make income off of total losses.
of course. Yes.
So let's not make this all doomsday. I mean, there is a segment of the collision repair world that is profiting from
Oh,
total.
absolutely.
And even where it may even make sense to, acquire some area to store vehicles, which some shop owners have done, and actually
Yes.
inside business.
Right.
So, it's something to consider, to not ignore, if you're a non-DRP, how you can benefit to something that's happening and you can't control. It's just an industry trend at this moment.
Of course. Of course.
By the way, Jessica Sen says hello, Cassie.
Hi,
Mhm.
Jessica.
Watching.
Dave's auto body shot out.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So now we had a third topic. We've got 9 minutes, so I think we can dive into it.
You know what? Let's do this. So not enough trained technicians, and I think this is a really hot topic. For collision, finding technicians who are skilled, who can jump into or maybe dual. I know there was a time when you could find techs who could do, who could paint and, could do body work. And I don't know if that's the case anymore. And I think shop owners are going to have to change their mindset with that. And I think there has been some struggle in finding technicians. However, there are solutions. So, Jeremy, I know you have some opinions about solutions. I'll let you start and then I'll go with mine.
Sure. So I guess the initial thing that does work, and nothing works 100% well. You have to figure out what works for your shop. But what does work is because you can find guys out there or gals that want to learn. They're out there. Okay. The non-typical kid that doesn't go to a typical normal college or whatever, and he just wants to work. He wants to work, get his or her hands dirty, and work and
They want to build things.
Hands-on person.
Yeah.
Right? They're out there, but they're not trained. So what do? Okay. You take a person like that, or somebody that maybe is a detailer or, just a C-Tech or something like that. And you got to do an in-house training program. You just do that. That's something that does work. The problem with that is, who's going to do that? Either the owner's going to do that if they're off the floor by that point, but if they're a tech themselves and crazy busy and trying to run a business, that's pretty difficult. Or you could, in some instances, you could take the A-Tech and put them under and train them, but then you're taking efficiency away from the A-Tech. So there's not a perfect scenario, but that is one way to do it. And then the other way that I've learned just in the last year or so is there are a very few companies out there that will come to your shop to train a technician for you. Okay. Now, it is expensive, I'm not going to lie. But what I've heard is some shops do like a training program and invite other area shops to help justify and keep that expense down. And honestly, it's good for everybody because if just one shop did it, well, yeah, then if each individual shop just did it themselves, then it costs everybody a lot of money. But if one shop does it and kind of hosts it and then invites, 5, 6, 7, 8 shops, whatever your number is, in for that training, everybody benefits, everybody cuts the cost, and these techs that need training get trained. So that is another possibility.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right, Jeremy. There's a whole new mindset of another generation coming up who don't necessarily want to go into a 4-year liberal arts college coming out with a huge debt, and they're watching older, siblings who are struggling with that, and they want to go to work. They want to learn a skill, a marketable skill.
Right.
But you've got to know how to train.
And then the fear, of course, is that you train them and then they leave and go across the street for $2 more an hour or whatever. That's always going to be there. So I would, there's shops that are doing something like, a contract or something where you work here for a certain amount of years and then you don't have to pay it back or something like that. So do you have to work on your state laws with that? But that is a
you got to find out if it's legal in your
area.
Yeah, but you can mitigate that by being the shop that everybody wants to work at.
And that too.
Just, and what was it? Probably Bob can quote this one better, but I think Mike Lee used to say, you want to have somebody trained and leave, or do you want to have someone who stays and isn't trained?
Right.
Well, that's actually a Henry Ford quote.
Well, is it?
Yes, training's expensive, and what if you spend all that money, you train them, and they leave? Goes, well, what if you don't train them and they stay?
And they stay. That's the quote. Thank you very much for I butchered it.
Yeah. So those are all very true points. And as you grow, you obviously have more resources and more opportunities. I know this one particular privately held MSO. I think they're up to about 30 shops in Northern California. They have a huge training facility and program, a full-time trainer who develops a curriculum, and they just run these young people through that training program, and they're having a tremendous success at that.
Yeah, and I would say whatever level shop you're at, if you're a one-man show all the way up to a 30-person operation, somehow you have to incorporate training.
That's right.
We even suggested doing, maybe twice a week, do lunches where the owner provides the lunch and then they do a training on what particular repair for everyone. Or that lead tech does the repair. And we also talked about you don't always have to go for the A tech. Go for the B plus, B minus tech who needs to be trained.
Right.
Well, that's always been true. Owners are always looking for a mini me. I want
Yeah, they
someone who
want.
knows everything that I know.
That's right. And I had a shop in Denver that used to be able to bring in young guys who weren't nearly like C techs, and he'd turn them into A techs in about 3 months. And I was watching those KPIs.
Yeah.
He made it happen.
That's amazing. Hey, we've got a special event coming up, don't we, Cassie?
We do. All right, so next week we have the opportunity, the pleasure, to work with Jay Stick, who is the editor of Fender Bender. He's going to speak with us. It's going to be a question and answer, but he's also going to provide an overview of some general industry trends that he's seeing. Kind of his opinion, insight, overall insight, and he wants all of us to kind of chime in, see what your thoughts are, or offer any other questions you have about the industry, whether it be overall or specific to your shop. So I just really implore everyone to come to the event. It's going to be an opportunity that doesn't happen very often. Although as far as collision, we really are seeking out other resources for our collision shops. So that's exciting, but having Jay, to kick off the new year, we all really want you to be here. And I think it's going to be beneficial to all who attend.
And there should be a link in the chat. So look for the link.
Yeah, Brittany put the link in the chat.
When is it, Cassie?
It's going to be started next Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST.
Okay.
Yes, 3
So
p.m.
write
Eastern.
that down. January 15th, 12 o'clock Pacific time.
Yep.
Special event. The link's in the chat. How else can they get the link if they're not looking at the chat?
If they're clients, they can go to the client portal and go to the registration calendar and find it there.
Okay,
and then
good.
they can sign up right from the client portal.
Excellent. That's
and
great.
just know that you need to register. So when you do select the link, it'll require you to register, which is great. Just so we'll be ready for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Well, I think those are fabulous topics, and obviously all three of them we could have talked about for a long time.
Yes.
But Drive Facebook Live, we just have 30 minutes to hit the top those hot topics, and that's why we want you to join us on January 15th at 12 o'clock Pacific time for a more in-depth discussion on the condition of the industry, where the industry is going, and changes that are coming. And we sure hope to see you all there. So any parting words, Cassie or Jeremy?
There's lots to discuss. I mean, this industry is still changing. It's still growing. There's some still basic truths in dealing with insurance companies that are not going to change. So, that's an ongoing topic. So please take heed, hold on to some of the things we discussed today, but there's more to come.
Yeah.
Because there's more unfolding.
Absolutely. Well, then,
Okay.
from all of us at Drive Facebook Live, I want to thank you for joining us. Jeremy, thanks for your time. Cassie, thanks for your time. I wish everybody a very prosperous new year, and may it exceed your wildest dreams and expectations. And we'll see you next time. So long, everyone.